So my conception of it, I'm ad-libbing on a tremendous amount of this. So I have a colleague who I'll remain nameless, but he's one of the most famous agent-based modelers there is in health these days. And he tells me he never, ever will run a model live in front of people. And I think I quipped at one point, I never ever build a model except in front of a group of people that run it. So we have somewhat different styles when it comes to kind of risk aversion. And it's actually not true. I do sometimes build models not in front of people, but I typically run them in front of people. Sometimes for the first time I run them, not infrequently. So I guess different levels of risk aversion. Okay. Yeah. So he regaled me with the time he ran a model in front of people and it didn't work. And it was very bad. I do that a lot, and part of the situation. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go, and we're going to get this because we're going to get you to your morning tea. Okay, so what we need to do is we're going to separate out basically several components. We have right now death. Here we go, death, which is dependent on a baseline mortality hazard by age, and then by our hazard rate for smoking. And that hazard rate kind of artificially makes former smokers, it gives them a higher overall risk, with the idea being, well, they smoked in the past. But now we can actually control for how much they smoked in the past. We actually know how much they smoked in the past through this cumulative time smoked. We don't need to just have this blunt instrument that anyone who's a former smoker, no matter if they had 6 packs in their life or 600 or 6,000 packs in their life, to tar them all with the same former smoker brush of a ratio of 2 times. So what I'm going to propose doing is I am going to say that I'm going to actually rename, to sharpen things slightly, this mortality hazard rate ratio for smoking. Yeah, well, fine. I was going to rename it, but I think we'll leave it that way. We'll just change it to be back to 1.0 when they're a former smoker. Okay? We'll change it back to 1.0. Why? Because we're going to capture the risk associated with earlier smoking to an individual separately from their current risk of smoking. So we're going to have a component from the fact they're currently a smoker, but then a lot of the risk is going to come from their past smoking. Okay? Now, it's a good learning opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, when you make a change, this isn't finished yet, but let's run the model and see how it changes the pattern, just to sharpen our thinking about what's going on. What do you think will change now? If we go look at that pattern, what do you think will change? Oh, of course, I can navigate to it. Here we go. Okay. So now we have a bunch of people who are high risk, and those include, the current smokers. Whenever they're smoking, they have a high risk of death for sure. These individuals who have smoked very little probably are no longer smokers. They relapsed successfully, and they kind of resisted the pullback until it became inelastic. They entered the nonlinear regime, the inelastic regime. They sort of separated from their smoking. They were no longer pulled back by it. So we do have some individuals quite high up here who live despite having lived for a while, because once they quit, if they stay quit here, they can live for a long time. Do you see that? If they stay quit, they can live on for many, many years because they're no longer pulled back by the smoking. They no longer have any elevated risk compared to never smokers, right? So once they quit, they can live for a long time. While they're still smoking, they're still at higher risk. But once they're free of smoking, right now, they're no higher risk. So it's really kind of drawn up this, and we really see these kind of peaks up here that we didn't see so much anymore. Notice, by the way, it's starting to get rid of some points because there's too many points in there. We could set it to a higher rate. Okay, so now let's go add this, and this will be quick. Okay, so what we need to add in, we need to do something a little bit similar to this, but we're going to add in a coefficient. Okay, and where we put this coefficient, let's go put it in main. This is going to be a coefficient common across all people that it's going to express how does the hazard rate end up changing with time since smoking. This is going to be a beta parameter. Okay, so I'm going to say beta hazard. So mortality hazard. Beta 4 mortality hazard. How about mortality hazard beta for cumulative time smoked? Maybe you can choose a better name. I'll call it mortality hazard beta for cumulative time smoked. So this is a beta expressing the impact of cumulative time smoked on the mortality hazard. Are we okay with that? Okay, now this has got to be something very small, comparatively small. And we've got to think actually here. We need it. Indeed. That's exactly it. Yeah. Okay. So the way in which we're going to do this is we're going to set this initially to 0. Okay. Set it to 0, and we're going to adjust it in just a moment. But I want to focus on the structure of this. Next. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Next, we're much of the way done now, believe it or not. Next, we will go to this place, and we are going to add in, after this mortality hazard rate ratio for smoking, we're going to make it times exp of main dot that thing that we just created. Main dot mortality hazard beta for cumulative time smoked times cumulative time smoked. That's the yeah. So let me put this up here. In fact, as I want, I'm going to put it down like this, so you can just see each of these components of. Oh no, I don't want to do that here. You could see each of these components. I'll put it up on the big screen here. Okay, here we go. Oh, no. This guy's got to go at the end of the previous line. There we are. Okay, boom. There we are. Okay, I'm going to put it up on the big screen here. Boom. Okay, this thing was already there. The last thing was already there. All I've done is I've added this component here. And it should be something like that. Okay? This is quite similar to the exponential formulation you see in survival analysis or competing risks. You've got some cumulative time smoked till now, and a beta term times it. And if cumulative time smoke till now is 0, exp of that, exp of 0 be 1. So it's not increasing it at all. But as this term rises, this beta times the covariant here, the exp of that will grow larger and larger, and it's going to amplify the overall hazard because we multiply by something that's, exp of not 0, but exp of 0.5 or exp of 1. If it's exp of 1, this will be basically around 2.7, and it'll be it'll be boosting the overall hazard. So this is what I added, this exp term. And the parentheses here for exp go from here to here, and this is the beta times this explanatory variable there. Or it's actually here, serving as a causal variable. Okay. Autocomplete is your friend. Autocomplete is your friend. So I'd advise you against typing this. I'd advise you against typing that. One of the advantages of autocomplete is we can use descriptive names. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Who needs help? TA help? Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go now and build. Make sure it's a happy camper. And then we will go and we'll go to this population here. I'm going to run it with a mortality hazard of 0, beta of 0. What is that going to yield? What is that going to mean? If we do it as a mortality hazard beta of 0, what would that mean here? If this is 0, what does it mean? Well, it's going to be whatever it is. 0 times it is going to be 0, so it's going to be exp of 0, which is going to be 1. And so basically the cumulative time smoked is not going to matter. It's not going to matter. This is what we're going to see. That same thing we saw just a few minutes ago with these peaks associated with former smokers. Once they escape current smoking, they can live for a good long time. There's no damage done cumulatively if we have a beta of 0. Now let's up that beta, shall we not? Okay. So I'm gonna copy this experiment, and I'll go paste it in up here. That's another common pattern Winchell can know. Copying an experiment and pasting it in. Winchell, did you note that? Oh, he's timing something. Don't bother him. Yeah. Another common pattern is copying an experiment and pasting it. Here's population 100, mortality hazard beta 0.02, or say 0.02. Okay. Let's make it a bit larger than that. 0.04. Okay. I'm thinking. So if you've smoked 10 years, then yes, it's multiplier of x to the 0.4. So here we go. Oh my gosh. Sedyaula. It's dead. Okay, sorry, my AnyLogic died suddenly. The Linux version sometimes does that. Sorry, this is like the cusp of greatness. But you folks can run it still while I am bereft. Okay.
What value should we give to?
Sorry?
What value should we give to the beta?
The beta 0.04. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Now I'm I'm getting back in the saddle, ladies and gentlemen. Fear not. Okay, so I'll go post this model post-haste. Okay. Oh, by the way, AnyLogic saves your model every few minutes, and I think you can set how often it saves. Is that right, Winchell? You could set how often it in preferences. Yeah. So here we're going to, ladies and gentlemen, use the automatically saved copy. Sometimes happens. So it didn't get my renaming of this, so it sort of lost it after I copied, but before I renamed. So I'm going to say hazard. So mortality hazard beta of 0.04. There we are. 0.04. Oh my gosh. Diaula. It died again. Okay. It's sorry. I know about this problem with AnyLogic on Linux. When you try to edit the properties of an experiment, it dies easily. I know it. I wish others didn't have to experience it. Glad we're getting this on tape, so to speak. Okay. Sorry about this. Are you able to run it? What do you see? Okay, this time I have to be really careful. Okay, here we go. And we'll open it and we'll use the replaced one. Okay, the autocomplete, yeah. You know what it is? It's actually when you rename the experiment. That's what the problem is. Here we are. It actually got the rename, but then, okay, here we go. Okay, watch out here. Oop. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay, now we're good to go. Okay. There we go. Okay, let's go see what this has yielded. Okay. Okay, that's kind of interesting. We don't see quite as much in the way of longevity among individuals who were former smokers. There's kind of an overall trend downwards here. It's somewhat more pronounced. And unfortunately, at a certain point, this fills up in terms of points. But there's kind of a slope downwards, it would appear, associated with the longer you've smoked, the greater your risk. Even if you're a former smoker, you have a greater risk. People are dying somewhat earlier. We haven't controlled for that, so there's somewhat of a lower lifetime here, and people are smoking a little bit less time because of that. But okay, anyway, so there it is. Now what we have is a phenomenon where we've separated out a risk from current smoking status versus a risk from cumulative time. We are able to do that because it is actually recomputing, it is recalculating this risk of death over time, and therefore it is reevaluating this. So as this updates over time, this cumulative time smoked until now, the risk of death will be higher and higher. If we were to shape this, okay, I would invite you to copy this and paste it. And I would invite you to increase this yet further. And I have to be very careful here because the same thing may happen. I'm going to make it the beta 1, and I'm going to make the mortality hazard, it can't be 1. I'll make it 0.1. So okay, this is going to be hazardous, 0.1. Okay, so we're going to make it 0.1 on this new one, and we'll run that. What would we expect to see now? As we increase that effect of cumulative smoking, What would we expect to see in terms of how it changes this? Sorry? They die earlier is right. And you could see this is bringing it down. You could see evidence of that. It's bringing it down to the 40s with large amounts of smoking. Do you see that? Brought down. And then there's a fairly steep gradient here where if you have very little smoking, you live precipitously longer, and then it sort of comes down here. So those individuals who are smoking for 30, 35 years are at great risk of mortality. But meanwhile, those who are younger have very, who have less smoking cumulative can have very full lives in terms of years of life. Ladies and gentlemen, you see the sharp curve down. So now we have this effect of cumulative time smoked on mortality. Okay. Okay. It's time for a bit of a break, though. Thank you very much for your attention, and we'll pick up in another 20 minutes. 20 minutes, Jeff?
It's there.
Yeah. So, but a 20-minute break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 20-minute break. Thank you very much. Oh, thank you so much.
From home.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I need to stop this. There we go.